Welcome to our next lesson segment. In this discussion, we are going to learn about where the topic of cybersecurity all began, the history of computers. There's an old adage that states, "You can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been." This statement couldn't be more true with regard to cybersecurity. As future cybersecurity professionals, it is crucial for you to have a deep understanding of the origins of your field in order to most effectively shape its future. For you, this understanding begins at the early stages of computing. By knowing the history of computing and the emerging trends in cybersecurity, you will have a better idea of the cybersecurity landscape and the impact of risks on information security today. With that said, let's get started. The early days of modern computing were born out of a wartime need to quickly and efficiently encode and decode sensitive messages between our allies. We also use computers to find ways to intercept and to quickly decode messages sent between enemies to gain a wartime advantage. A very prominent example of code making and breaking technologies is the Enigma machine. The Enigma machine was a tool that was first developed and used by the Germans in the 1920s to encode and decode sensitive messages. By World War II, the Enigma became a powerful wartime tool. The process by which the Enigma encoded and decoded materials was so complex that it was extremely difficult for others intercepting the messages to decode. This gave the Germans a significant advantage in being able to communicate various battle tactics without being thwarted by enemy troops. It wasn't until the 1940s when a machine was developed that could decode the complex messages that were produced by the Enigma. These machines, known as bombs, used a number of complex processes to decode what was being passed between Enigma users. Soon, the use of these wartime machines allowed for our allies to understand what was happening and to anticipate next moves. While we will spend a lot of extra time learning about the Enigma when we enter our cryptography segment of this course, I would recommend that you watch the movie The Imitation Game to learn about the remarkable story associated with cracking the Enigma's code. The movie, although not required by this class, is extremely interesting. It's available to watch on many different formats online and will give you just a glimpse of the way that the Allies were able to intercept and decode the German messages in World War II. But the wartime push for modern computing didn't end there. Computer hardware and functionality continued to progress out of the need for a wartime advantage. For example, the ENIAC, which was developed in the University of Pennsylvania, was created to calculate complex wartime ballistics tables. Let's watch the following video, which explains the history of ENIAC and its pivotal role in the advancement of computing and technology. As you can see from the examples discussed from the early stages of computing, the first computers weren't fast, small, interconnected, or even affordable for that matter. These early computers were large, standalone mainframes that took up an entire room, were extremely slow compared to today's standards, and could only be developed and afforded by larger institutions like the military and, in some cases, universities. Security for these large computers primarily required a strong physical approach. Because they were such large pieces of machinery, the biggest threats to these types of devices were physical theft, espionage, and sabotage. To protect these devices from these issues, physical rooms were set aside and fortified to protect the expensive resources from harm. Access points were created to restrict unauthorized people from being able to get to these devices. Back then, cybersecurity needs were much different than the needs we experience today. But what helped shape the more modern concerns with security? Let's keep moving through the history of computers to find out. Computing grew steadily out of its deep roots in wartime operations. While the military and researchers alike were able to create computers that could perform much more robust and helpful functions, these machines were still unable to communicate with each other. Arguably, one of the most significant changes that helped shape the need for security that we have today was the evolution of the modern-day Internet. Let's watch a quick video about the history of the Internet and the evolution into the interconnected world that we know today. When you're finished, we'll break this development down into the various changes that were made over the years since its inception.